déjà. Allongé sous le soleil, siroter le plaisir. Mais tu sais bien que l'on glisse au bord de la piscine. Ne demande pas, ne me demande pas. Embrasse-moi, embrasse-moi, embrasse-moi. Avant qu'il ne soit trop tard.
Don't you know we feel so fine? Easy love is still the same. I wouldn't want
langage corporel.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back. The first act for the afternoon is to welcome back our Innovation Awards. The judges have discussed, deliberated, and watched all the videos and reviewed all the material, and they've been extremely impressed by the quality and the noticeable hard work presented by each of the teams. The judges are delighted to announce that the 3 finalists will be Symantec, Intelia, and LEP Biomedical. And congratulations to all 3 finalists. And if they could come up on the stage if they're here for a quick photograph with the sponsor UPMC. Yeah. And Eamon from UPMC, please. Well done. Congratulations. As we're coming. It's down there. And we wish you all the very best of luck on your journey, because I know it isn't an easy journey. So the first session this afternoon is something that's very close to my heart, and we've spent a lot of time in IHEED working on, is staffing, recruitment, retention of healthcare workers. The background is we know that there's a deficit globally of over 17 million healthcare workers, and obviously that's been further exacerbated by COVID. We're very lucky to have a panel to talk to us today from various backgrounds who have views on where it's all headed and where both public and private sector organisations should spend their time in terms of offering incentives to their staff. So the first speaker is Seamus Clancy. Seamus is the public sector healthcare and not-for-profit lead at LinkedIn here in Dublin. Seamus brings 25 years of experience in the technology sector. He's very passionate about the future of work and has successfully partnered with institutions like the European Commission, the OECD, the World Economic Forum and the UN, the Inter-American Development Bank and the African Development Bank on digital transformation programs. So I invite Seamus to the stage. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're all well fed and caffeinated for a breakneck speed tour through what we see from a recruitment and retention point of view, okay? So the first thing I would say is, let me just explain, can I get this to work first? Let me just explain what LinkedIn is, okay? We're probably known as a jobs board, okay? Sorry. Okay, we're known as a jobs board, but ultimately, if you look at the kind of work we do with academic, government, not-for-profit, and healthcare organizations, we are very much a data company, okay? Now, you're probably asking yourself, what gives me the authority to talk about the future of work, retention, and recruitment? It's very, very simple. We have a unique data set, okay? We have access to real-time data across countries, across geographies, across industries, okay? So at any one time, we can actually take a look under the hood via our data scientists, which we have thousands in the organization, and see what is truly happening, okay? As Tom was saying, we partner extensively with the likes of the UN, the EU, European Commission, World Economic Forum, World Health Organization. If you have been in the US, if you watch CNBC, if you watch Bloomberg, you'll see our economists talking all the time about trends, movements, etc., across industries and across economies. Okay, now firstly, what I'll say is, our data set is very, very vast. We've over 1 billion members on the platform, okay? That constitutes you and I. It has all our information, what we do for a living, our skills, our education, etc. That's the data that we mine and we actually use to inform and make decisions on. So the first thing I would say to you as people in the healthcare industry is that we need to use data to be smarter around how we go and recruit and retain people. So as I said, a lot to cover today. We're going to take a look at a couple of things which I think would be very, very compelling for you in the healthcare industry. Okay, the first thing I want to focus on is let's just take a quick look at where we are right now. Okay, so over the last couple of years, it's been a very, very difficult time. Okay, we've had a pandemic, we've had wars, or we're having wars right now in Ukraine and Israel. Okay, we have inflation, we have increased interest rates, we've had a bank run in the US. Okay, and it doesn't look like it's going to get any better anytime soon. Okay, ultimately, though, I want to focus on what opportunity that creates, because it does create opportunity, and it's not going to get any easier, so we need to be prepared for the future. Okay? So I don't know if you've heard, but essentially what's happening in the healthcare industry right now is referred to as the big stay. Okay? What that actually means is, I think this graph is very compelling, because if you look at where we are now versus to pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, and right now, people are not moving. Okay? For the Irish-based people, if you've been reading the media recently, or if you've heard Michael O'Leary talk, he's been talking about there's something going on in the European economy. It feels like there's recessionary feeling around, okay? I don't know if that's the case or not, but as we can see, people are staying. They're not moving, okay? So the point I would make here is if we want to attract people into the healthcare industry, we got to meet people where they are, okay? We've got to be respectful to, like, for example, their generation, what motivates them, and how we're going to attract these people. Okay? When you attract them, retaining them is a whole different ballgame, but we'll cover that as well. Okay? So let's focus. I mean, it just gets worse. I mean, as we know, there's a war on talent, all right? The healthcare industry is really struggling to attract the right types of people. And the prediction is it's not going to get any better. Okay? So again, we need to focus on what we can do now to be prepared for the future. So what I wanted to do was, I've kind of touched on the fact that we have access to real-time data, okay? And we can take a look at the here and now. So what I did just a couple of days ago, together with our data scientists, we looked at a couple of countries, okay? And we wanted to see what specifically is happening in the healthcare industry. Now, a couple of things here we're going to take from this slide. And I started with Ireland specifically, because anybody who's Irish-based reads the media and hears that all our medical professionals and people in the healthcare industry, they're all going to Australia because the money is so much better, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all right? So I wanted to look at our data to see exactly what we see, okay? So there's a couple of things you'll see, right? First is we are gaining more talent from the UK than we're losing. And there's a reason there. There's a couple of things going on. Obviously, we're all aware of Brexit, but we're also aware that, for example, the HSE is aggressively going after clinical consultants, okay? That's happening right now. So we're gaining more than we're losing, okay? Secondly, and this is a question for the audience, if anybody wants to hazard a guess, we know that our medical professionals are going to Australia, okay? And we're seeing that they're going to Australia and, Sydney and Melbourne. Why are they not going to Durban? Why are they not going to Perth? Anybody want to hazard a guess? There's more allowances, there's better actual terms in the likes of Durban and Perth. Anybody want to hazard a guess? Yes. Quality of life, lifestyle, okay? This is the key takeaway here. The pandemic has fundamentally changed this industry. Like all industries, people are thinking about themselves. They're thinking about their future, their families, what's right for them, okay? What we saw during the pandemic is we saw quiet quitting. Saw people walking away, focusing on their well-being, their family's well-being, and essentially what's right for them. Some of those people did not return to the workforce. We still don't understand why. Are they wealthy enough to stay out of the workforce? But I thought this was fascinating. Now, if we move to the UK, I think the UK economy is having a hard time. But there's a couple of things here I want to focus on. Notice the movement from larger cities to smaller cities and to more rural areas. Again, the focus on well-being and lifestyle. Okay? This is telling me something, okay? In the healthcare industry, when we go after talent, we need to sell ourselves better. What can we offer in regard to lifestyle? What can we offer in regard to flexibility? What are the things that are unique to you as an organization or as a healthcare agency? What can you offer, okay? When we look at France and Paris in particular, same thing. Movement within the country. People are leaving the large cities to the smaller cities, the more rural areas. Again, my bet is that they're moving because of lifestyle. It's life-work balance, not work-life balance. Okay, so again, I'll use the HSE as an example. They're doing something at the moment. They're attracting clinical consultants in the UK. And one of the things that they've done really well is they're talking about if you come and relocate to Donegal or to Kerry or to Cork, these are the things you can expect to live in this area. That's what people want to hear. They don't want to hear that, like, okay, we already know that the pay scales are not amazing, okay? We already know that whatever, Ireland is this, that, and the other. They want you to sell it to them. You need to sell it to them. You need to win their hearts and their minds, okay? And then the last thing I wanted to focus on is Sydney, because I think everybody who reads the media and is in the healthcare sector just hears constantly that we're losing people to Australia on a regular basis. But what I wanted to focus on here is if you look within Australia, again, like every other country we've looked at to date, it's the regional movements. Okay, leaving Sydney to go to the smaller cities, the less populated cities, the more rural areas. And again, I tied back to lifestyle. Okay, so a couple of things here, and this information now that we're going to look at is global from a healthcare point of view. What is it that attracts and motivates the healthcare industry? Okay, now I work a lot with governments at a national level, and one of the things when I talk to them about attracting the right type of people, they're fixated on compensation. Fixated, cannot get away from it. And I'm there, okay, guys, that's your failing. We all know you can't compete with the private sector. You cannot. Healthcare is similar in a way that you have something that you can offer that nobody else can offer. And that is mission-driven people are drawn to you. They're motivated by doing good. Okay? They want the challenge. But what you can do to actually win their hearts is by being a little bit more flexible, if at all possible, giving them opportunities to navigate within your organization, giving them more opportunities. And I know that's easier said than done because sometimes it's not possible. But these are the things that as we go and hire and attract the right type of talent, this has to be front and center. You have to be seen as somebody that's going to invest in that person and give them opportunity. Okay? Moving on to the next slide. Again, I'm going to focus on something here. This is across all industries, not just healthcare. When you give a person the opportunity to better themselves, to improve their current standing, to actually become a better professional, people will be attracted to you as an employer. And our data shows when you give that opportunity, people stay. Okay? What we see is when people leave an organization, they usually leave within the first 1 to 3 years. But our data shows that in the first year, if you actually give that opportunity, you massively increase the possibility of retention. Okay? Now, I do want to touch on something here, and this is very, very important, because when we think of learning and development, specifically in the medical sector or in healthcare, we're thinking, okay, this is heavy stuff. This is actually something you just can't, teach via online bite-sized learning. But through our partnership with the World Economic Forum, this is across all industries. The skills of the future are what we call essential soft skills. It's something we all take for granted and we assume that we all have, but unfortunately we don't. These are really hard skills to master, but it's something that we as employers can actually make available because it's like practicing. It's like, communication, presenting, teamwork. These are the skills that's going to help us thrive in the fourth industrial revolution, in the era of AI. This is what makes the difference. And there's nothing to stop any of us from making this available to our employees. Nothing. Because in many cases, this content's free. It's actually free. You can make it available to your employees, and you can actually maybe a part of their measurement. These are things that we want them to study and to focus on. Okay? So I just wanted to kind of focus on that because I didn't want you thinking that this is kind of hard skills and I go to college or school for 7 years and therefore that's how I close the gap. This is something that we can all address here now. And then the last point I'll make is, and this is kind of just again to resonate and to reinforce the point, we need to meet people where they are. What motivates an 18-year-old is going to be very different to what motivates a 50-year-old, okay? So we talk about Gen Z, we talk about the various different generations. And ultimately, how we engage with those people is how we will be successful. So again here, this is a global lens. It's not specific to Ireland or to any other specific country, but looking at the age group, what motivates them. And it makes sense. I mean, people typically in the healthcare sector, public sector, are there for security reasons, okay? They're there for various different reasons, like maybe they're motivated by the challenge, by the mission. And you need to meet those people. So like when we go to the new generation who are coming from college today, and we try to attract them into our organization, you really need to be talking about the journey that you're going to bring them on. What you're going to do for them Like in LinkedIn, we say, what's going to be your next play after LinkedIn? How are you going to be a better professional so that you can move? That's what we talk on day one, is where are you going to go based on what you learn here? And I do think this is something that the public sector is embracing. I do think this is something that is going to be really help the healthcare industry as well. So with that, I understand it is breakneck speed. Okay, we have a lot of data. I've really scraped the surface. If you want to scan the QR code, there's a lot of data you can look at via our workplace report around skilling and skills of the future, and have a look on our blog as well. We have a lot of information across verticals, across industries, and these are all freely available to the public. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Seamus. That was fascinating, particularly to see the differences at the different ages and what people are looking for, and mirrors our own findings. The next speaker up is Gerard Chimbangda, and Gerard is the founder and CEO of Good People, an international recruitment company based in Dunshaughlin in County Meath and globally, and have about 100 staff located around the world. And Gerard is a big believer in diversity and inclusion in the health workforce, and I welcome him to talk to us about work.
Well, thank you for having me. So delighted to be here to really talk about an area that's passionate to me, because I walked the walk coming to Ireland 23 years ago. And my children were all born here, and my daughter says, I'm Irish. I had to be brown because my mom and dad are brown, but I'm Irish. And it became a thing that we're going to have to turn Ireland into home. And to turn Ireland into home, we went through some learnings. My wife was in the banking sector, and she ended up getting into the banking sector here. I thought I was coming to be a student, ended up becoming a business person. So in 2007, we were able to get into recruitment with a partner in the UK, and there's been a learning between Ireland and UK, where people traditionally from my part of the world where I originate from, which is Southern Africa, would have come they would have gone traditionally to UK because of the connections. But for me and my family, Ireland became the place to be. And how do we now help others also settle in Ireland? We started off in healthcare. We're now looking into engineering. We've had people come to us looking for engineers. We had people coming to us looking for IT people. And the whole thing, I like what the last speaker said, you got to help people where they are to be able to make Ireland attractive. And so one of the things in healthcare that we've managed to do, language becomes an issue. We're able to have checked and tested that, certain qualifications in places like South Africa, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and we've also now started dealing with people from the Philippines. We've had people from India. And one of the things that we were able to see is it just becomes a language. In healthcare, you cannot deliver services if you can't speak the language. So what we managed to do was to talk to the key people in OET and say, look, we can partner with you to actually start OET centers, because the British Embassy would have the other English language that most healthcare workers, if you're registered with the NIMBY or NIBI, the Nursing Board of Ireland, you need to have either a qualification from OET and or from IELTS. And so we then said, that's something that we're going to try and get to happen for doctors, nurses, and even some of the carers who these nurses would rather start off as carers. And so we started opening and helping OET open these centers in places like Zambia, where there was no Zambian nurses coming to Ireland or the UK as such, but the language became a key issue. And although Ireland's a bit behind, some of the UK hospitals have actually said, look, we will take people through an English test. And as they pass that test, because the qualification's okay, the languages, they speak, read, write English. And so the next stage is how do we get them done? So we set up these OET test centers and working with a partner organization in a place like Zambia, where I was there last week just to move to a medical university that's now the test center, and to just have this network where everyone can speak English, but then when you're tested for it, sometimes it just becomes a big issue. And so as we were doing that, we were able to impact on their local healthcare and then also be able to open up markets for Zambian nurses to go out in places like Australia, Ireland, UK, because that's the same requirement from a language point of view. So really, we were able to give them that enhanced prospect and personal development. And then me being based and our team being based here in Ireland, how do we make Ireland more attractive? As mentioned, COVID happened. We had some of the private hospitals and some of the hospitals in Ireland asking us to source staff for them again, with the view of having a diverse workplace, where you've got nurses from different places rather than, sadly to say, maybe 1,000 nurses all from one location, bringing them in and causing that to be more diverse. So we were able to then work with that and improve their chances of doing that. And as I said, some of the hospitals in the UK actually sponsor candidates to write these tests. For African-based nurse in particular, costs over €500. And some of these people, because they do want to get out, have written this test 5 times. So that's a lot of money. So so we figured out the best way to help them. Let's go through test you're doing your job. OET is a good one because it's occupational English. So you're talking nursing language, you're talking what you would normally do. And we found that really effective. It's empowering the people to come. So our approach is, we're linking the people with the right clients, and we focus on the candidate motivation. One of the things we found out when COVID hit was a whole lot of foreign nurses and foreign students were stuck. Colleges closed. And we had some people in the pipeline. They've come to Ireland, but then all recruitment is frozen. And they can't go back home. They have to stay in Ireland. And so we talked to the department, the immigration guys, say, look, these are health workers. They're here. And so we were given the permission to then extend their stay and allow them to be there. And part of that team, including some of our Sri Lankan students, became, for the HSC, I believe, a COVID response team. And so good people, I'd get calls from Cork, we need people. People have gone to self-isolate and places like that. There's no transport. Will you pay for the taxi? They agreed to pay for the taxi. And so it ended up that we had good people on the ground who were there. And so that focus on the motivation of the person, should they go back home, should they stay, how do we then turn nurses that have not done so well, say for example they've done the aptitude test, maybe they can't work as a nurse now, but they can make a very highly qualified healthcare assistants. So it's some of the things that we've been advocating, rather than send people that have, because for anyone to land in Ireland, they've actually either sold all their property. So it doesn't matter, they've come for a test here and then they're told you can't qualify, but that person can care for a home carer. And so we found, as we've turned some of these people into carers and into that, so it's really trying to make sure that we get people to settle, and Ireland as the place to be for families. The UK, I think the trends that were shown before, except if you're in the main cities, it's not a family conducive environment yet. Ireland is great for families. I've raised my family here for over 21 years. And what we are saying to people is that's the place, it's a place to be, although our visa systems don't necessarily align for families. The UK opened up for healthcare assistance, and they were able to bring their dependents, because if the requirement in Ireland, which it is at the moment, is you have to have 3 years experience, you know, after studying, people either get married, so they have dependents, they have a family, they have kids. So it becomes unrealistic to basically be saying that, you know, you can come, but your family can't. So the UK, I think, caught on to that. They were able to bring healthcare workers with their families, and the family or spouses are also allowed to work, which has created an environment where a lot of people have gone there. And I think Ireland is catching up on that, but it's really key to be providing that support and system. And then when you come to places like Dublin, no accommodation. How do we help our clients? How do we help the worker to settle? You've got to have a provision for that. We've been able to try and secure some units, although it's difficult because sometimes people overstay because they can't find somewhere else to go. So what has been key is to try and make Ireland the destination place, a place where people can come and people can settle and work in healthcare. You're either somebody called to healthcare or you're not. And so we believe anyone we try to bring in is good. And so we've tried to do that. So we are expanding our partnerships and strategies. And our call to action is, you know, we want to work with clients out there and be a solution provider. So if accommodation is your issue, we'll try and get all the people we bring in and try to bring them to your door. And that's what we've tried to do since over COVID and since 2017 when we started to be good people. Thank you.
Thanks, Gerard. Our final speaker in this panel is Dr. Rafael Manerto de Almeida, which is a bit of an Italian addition to the end. And Rafael is a Brazilian physician who's a cardiologist by background, but specializes in advising organizations, public and private, on healthcare delivery in Brazil, and also sits on a number of boards, including the board of the largest medical education provider in Brazil. So I felt it was important to bring him, seeing as Brazilian Portuguese is now the fourth, I think, or fifth most common spoken language in Brazil, for us to understand the Brazilian healthcare system and the opportunities between those two.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you very much. Tom, thank you once again. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. I am a physician, as Tom mentioned, and I also study healthcare management. And in the last 19 years, I work with healthcare management. Nowadays, I have a consulting company along with my wife that is also a physician. And we help hospitals in Brazil, clinics, and health insurance to make strategic plan, business models, and also training and mentoring physicians that want to be medical directors. And I would like to bring to my presentation 3 approaches. The first approach, of course, the core of this summit is technology. The second approach is the future of medicine, because we are becoming more familiar with the term medicine of the future, but it's also mandatory we think about the future of medicine because of all the challenges that we are having. And the third approach, of course, people, the focus of this panel. So that's why my presentation is Future-Proof Medicine, the critical role of healthcare professionals and the sustainability of the global health system. And I would like to start with this reflection. What is the secret to success of the most famous health services in the world. If we took a management book, a management paper, they will say that is people, of course, and the interaction of processes. And the book also calls the interaction of processes as mechanical systems. And this is very important, this is very key. So once again, the success is people and processes are called mechanical systems. And those mechanical systems, they are regarded by investors. They are very valuable because we have process, protocols, flowchart, guidelines, they all are mechanical systems. And the people part of this equation is called adaptive systems. That is the focus on this panel. And when we mention this adaptive system, we're saying about reception, greeting, humanization, assertive communication. And the challenge is, we all want a mechanical system, but the main role of us, people, is to enhance this mechanical system, but also can occur that the people worse than the mechanical system. So this is the great challenge. The all healthcare sectors and other economic sectors, for that matter, they love mechanical system. We need the guidelines. But who execute them? People. And the difference between the healthcare facilities and the hospitals and healthcare insurance is the relationship between the people and those mechanical systems. And what is the role of the artificial intelligence? Once again, the summit about future. So what is the whole about artificial intelligence in all of this context? This is a page, an excerpt from a book of Harvard that said that the main focus of artificial intelligence is to provide better decisions and improve or automate our process. So, regarding once again to our mechanical system, artificial intelligence can help us to get it automatically, to improve, to be easier to copy. Because once you have here in Ireland an excellent hospital, you can have an ecosystem of hospitals, because you can, of course, reply those. But as we mentioned, the secret is in the people, and the artificial intelligence, it's being used even more to help those people with the clinical decision. So once again, I show you the book from the Harvard Business Review. This is a main concept, because artificial intelligence is a ground term nowadays. We're speaking a lot about artificial intelligence, but getting the truth, the real use of this is main concepts. And we must remember then artificial intelligence, well used by the people, may give competitive advantage. Why? Once again, the books say that competitive advantage is when you have a resource rare, difficult to copy, operationable. You have to be able to operationalize this resource and associate with value generation. Once again, the systems, the mechanical systems, they are not competitive advantage. People are. Because you may have people that are rare, and very difficult to have other with the same skills and abilities, and they are associated with the great value. And value is another concept that we not always dive into it. Because when we talk about people and healthcare, of course, all of us are thinking about the healthcare employees, but we must consider, and is already been told in the presentation during the day, The people are our patient. So this is a page from an article from Harvard Business Review called The Pyramid of Value, created by Bain Company. Each of one of those are values that our company could provide to the clients. So this is the pyramid of the B2C clients. And that one is from the B2B clients. But the point is, all that we are discussing in here comes down to generate value. And we must study it with a more detailed value. This article from the New England have a subsection called New England Catalyst that studies leadership, healthcare systems, technology, and of course, this concept about value get into the healthcare sector once Michael Porter in 2006, nearly 20 years ago, defined this formula. So this formula, it's been considering nowadays the treasure of the future-proof medicine, once again. So Ireland, Brazil, UK, how we're gonna manage healthcare. So this formula is a complex conceptual formula that says that value-based healthcare is a relationship between outcome and cost. But outcome, it's a composite indicator because within outcome, we have the existence, we have indicator in our protocols because they are different. I can perform a perfect treatment to a heart condition and patient still dies. So the outcome essentially is different from I follow a guideline and a KPI. We have the user experience and we have the use of the right technology to the right page. And at the bottom, cost, it's no longer the cost of an event. A hospitalization or a device or a medication, but it's been called the time-driven activity-based cost. Very difficult to measure because it's what we consider in the lifetime of this patient during 1 year. So once again, maybe I have a patient that I spend a lot of money during a hospitalization, but it got better. Didn't need to go to emergency department, was able to regain his life. So this is important to consider the cost of the line of care, 1 year and not along with event. It is very difficult. Once again, Michael Porter brought that concept 20 years ago. Why still today it's a challenge? Why still today it's a concept of success that so few achieve? Because it's very difficult. And once again, the technology here in this event that we are discussing can help us to measure those outcomes. 10 years later, Michael Porter once again with his team published this paper, this article, saying that the strategy that we're gonna fix healthcare relies on measure outcome. It's unbelievable how we, in 2024, still pursue those kind of measurement. But this is the truth. And once we measure those outcomes, we will be able to elect islands of excellency. So some hospitals here are going to be fantastic in oncology, on orthopedic, or in cardiology, because we're going to measure, and once we measure, we can replicate to other parts. Another concept formula regarding people, future-proof medicine, and technology. This one is from Kellogg. Kellogg School of Business in the United States says that we have to consider the total value. During the morning here in the summit was also discussed. We have to take care in pursuing the profit and the value only for our companies. So this Kellogg formula says that The total value equals the value perceived by the customer minus the price that he paid minus the cost. And when we consider the cost and the price, we have the company profit in green, of course. But when we consider the value that patient receives minus the price, we have the customer profit. And the total value exists when the company profits and the customer profits. But why this is a challenge? Because every time we wanted to enhance the value to the customer, we end up enhancing our costs, and for that matter, our prices. But this summit, it's about innovation, and we have to remember that the concept of disrupt innovation is when we are able to enhance the value to the customer and reduces our cost. This is a term created by Clayton Christensen, a professor also from Harvard. And this is something that we have to pursue. But it's almost impossible to have disrupt innovation without technology. Once again, think about odd sectors, not healthcare sectors. How many things get better and cheaper thanks to technology? The challenge is to replicate that in the healthcare system. And once again, people are the key factor to innovate. So this is just one framework. How do we innovate in our company? We can start to getting better, know our people and our patients, and then have insights, and then write down those insights and test them, put them to the test. Another phrase already said, we have to innovate and fail fast, isn't it? Actually, fail fast, cheap, and smart, as the private equity said, because we have to run tests and experiment. And another provocation. We love to talk about innovation in our companies, but there are few companies prepared to innovate. So this is another book that says, we innovate or we have the theater of innovation in our company. In other words, we say perhaps to our people, we have to innovate, but we have budget to innovate, to lose money in our company. We have that in our organization design. Who can help them? We have the resources. And going to the final, because my time's up, now that I said, my time's up. Going to the final, a lot of companies in the world are changing the focus on stakeholders to the employees. Once again, stakeholder, it's any person, any company that can influence your business. But several companies nowadays are considering the major stakeholders, people, our employees, because they ultimately are able to deliver all of that. And we have this problem that already been brought here in this summit. Our employees, our people, they are afraid, they don't have good quality of life, they are at risk to medical errors, and we have guidelines to help them. Once again, a mechanical system that can help them to deal with those fails, with those events, but not always we know them. And to end up this presentation, a few numbers from my country. We have 210 million people, 51 million have access to private sector, so around 23%, comparing to Ireland that we said nearly half have access to private sector. But we have 209,000 clinics, 7,000 hospitals, and 4.5 million healthcare professionals. Nearly the population of Ireland, only of healthcare professionals, Tom. Okay? Of course, it's not broadly distributed. We have some regions in Brazil that we have much more physicians than the others. And comparing with OECD, you can see in green Brazil, on the bottom of this chart, okay, we have a huge way to go. We are in Brazil having more initiative to form more physicians, more nurses, because we have a continental country, for that matter. And I would like to end with this reflection. All of the presentations, all of the panels we are having in this summit, it's very important for us to bring to our homes and reflect, because if not us, who? And if not now, when? So thank you very much.
Thanks, Raphael. You know, what's amazing is just the scale, and you know, you put it in perspective. I had the opportunity to visit Brazil on a number of occasions through our work, and just the scale of the size of the healthcare service in Brazil, the populations, the number of hospitals, the number of healthcare providers. And you know, one of the opportunities I felt was that there are so many young Brazilian doctors going through medical school in Brazil who would be looking for a career. You want to speak about them a tiny bit? And that they might be looking internationally?
For sure. Actually, the healthcare physicians that are in Brazil year after year going to the market, I believe now it's about 30,000 physicians a year that are going to market. And something very interesting, they also are moving from big cities to small cities because of quality of life, but also because of the competition.
Yep.
We have some cities in Brazil, the capitals, that, for example, it's not more open for one more cardiologist, you know? So when those physicians try to enter in the insurance program, for example, this insurance program say, no, we are closed. We don't want to hire another cardiologist or pediatrician for that matter. So they are moving from the capitals to small cities, and in those small cities are getting more higher the opportunities also for family physicians and the primary care in Brazil. This is something that even in the private sector is enhancing.
And what's the average earning capacity of a family doctor in Brazil?
40,000 reais per month.
Okay.
Let's say something like $500,000 reais yearly. We have real to euro from 1 to 5, 1 to 6.
Okay.
For that, so it would be 80 sometimes in the private sector. In the public sector, half. So in the private sector, 80,000 euros yearly, and 30 to 40 in the public sector.
Yeah, and before we move on to the others, just give us a sense of the number of medical schools in Brazil.
Wow, I believe nearly 40.
And nursing schools?
Wow, I don't have the exact number, but probably double that.
Yeah, oh no, surely, yeah.
And one point important to consider, Tom, because in countries in Europe, you only have the figure of the nurse. And in Brazil, we still have the nurse technician.
Yes.
Okay, for example, it's very common in Brazil, you have in a critical care unit, 1 nurse and 5 nurse technicians. It's something here in Europe that we don't see. You're probably gonna see 5 nurses or 10 nurses for that matter, no? In Brazil, the nurses are expensive for our healthcare systems. And the nurse technician, it's a more simple in the organization. They don't go to college. It's a technical program. And it still exists in Brazil.
Yeah. I mean, what was interesting, you said to me last night, you know, when you walked around Dublin, you could hear all the Brazilian accents and hear all the Brazilian people here. And I just wonder, is there an opportunity for us to tap into that? And interestingly, on your thing, Seamus, did you notice that Brazil figured? Yeah, it figured on the chart. I mean, I asked you this question before, but in terms of healthcare professionals being on LinkedIn, doctors and nurses, can you talk about?
Yeah. So I'm going to use some phrases and some terms that we kind of classify skilled individuals as, so white collar, blue collar, etc. Right. So when we look at healthcare, and it's similar enough as well with academic and government, we have what we would classify as white collar. So the senior level are on the platform. And where we've struggled in even markets like Ireland is the kind of frontline workers.
Yep.
They are not on the platform. And there's a number of reasons behind that. Okay. One is the mobility is not that common. I mean, people do not tend to move around as often. So therefore, they're in Limerick or in Dublin or whatever it is, they're working in the hospital and they're there for the rest of their days. Okay. That's where they're going to be. But the one thing I would say is you need to look at LinkedIn as an organization. We're an American company. And at the moment, we have an MVP, which is essentially a trial program running in the US, which is essentially attracting these frontline workers to the platform, which has been a massive success. And the pandemic has been great for us, for example, in the UK. Massive staff shortage in the UK. We got these frontline workers on the platform. And as a result, we've got a very strong relationship now with the NHS. I want to replicate that in Ireland because we need more frontline workers on the platform, but they don't tend to be on the platform because I guess it's the stability and security of their current employment. They don't feel like they need to be in the shop window like the rest of us.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case. And you spoke about, I mean, if you look at, traditional Irish nurses moving more peripherally and they tend to be embedded in the community and they're less likely to move around. Jared, just if you kind of look at, you've been on an amazing journey, really, coming from Zimbabwe and coming here and making a home and building a business. And, it's an extraordinary journey. But where do you see the future between Ireland and Africa in terms of healthcare workers?
I think there's more opportunity, but Ireland has to be very deliberate. I mean, like I said, the UK has been go get them. And so you'd have UK hospitals going to have recruitment summits and linking up with universities and training schools out there, something Ireland has not yet done, and we're trying to promote and pioneer in terms of getting that connection, because in Africa you actually have people or healthcare workers with a push factor, because obviously you were talking about say the Brazilian salaries, they're way lower out there, but then
give us a sense of the African salaries now.
Well, so let's be earning anything up to about 300-400 a month.
Euros.
But
a nurse.
A nurse, yeah. So to move to Ireland and earn 30,000 is a great move, but there's also challenges of, accommodation and also, the whole visa issues.
So what have the UK done? Sorry to cut across you. What have the UK done that we haven't done?
So what the UK have done, they've negotiated with some of those governments to actually churn out people for them.
Right.
So a government-to-government arrangement, and then use your recruitment companies to help bring the people through.
Is that accelerating the visa process?
Yes, the visa process, and making it a conducive visa. Okay. Meaning if somebody's got a family, their family comes too. In Ireland, you have to wait for a year before if you're not on a general work permit, you have to wait for at least a year before the family can join. In the UK, there is no general work permits. It's a healthcare visa, so nurses and healthcare assistants can bring their families. They tried to change that recently, and there's challenges now from a legal perspective. You can't say you'll take the healthcare worker and dump their families. So it's all these things that Ireland has not properly got into. But there's an opportunity where, from an Irish perspective, we're English speaking. We're the only ones in the EU outside of the UK. So that's an opportunity to actually sell. Most of the Southern African, former British colony countries have an education system that's very similar to the UK, so that's another advantage. Whereas in Ireland, you have to have all these equivalency. Your qualification is at level 6 or level 7, and I think that work has been done over the years, because now NARIC knows, and even the boards like the nursing board or even CORU,
Yep.
they would now have equivalency of those qualifications. So now the opportunities, Africa is always producing more than they use locally.
Yep.
So being like an India or Philippines is a great potential,
Yep.
as long as, again, it's not considered a situation where you are taking away the workers from where they are needed.
I mean, that's the challenge, right?
Yeah, that's the challenge.
Particularly on the medical side. I know in countries like Rwanda and Uganda
Mm-hmm.
and other countries I've visited in Africa, the challenge is really, there's very few doctors there anyway.
Yes.
So you don't want to be part of taking all of them away.
Yeah.
But yet, that's not our decision, right?
Yeah, it isn't. It's a global world now.
Yeah.
And once they do get on platforms like LinkedIn, somebody will take them.
Yeah.
And Australia is not, as a former, it's not a colonial power. It
Yeah.
was never a They just come in and just take as many people as they can, help them out, fund them, and do that, which is something that Ireland could do within reason, obviously. Like I say, there's more nursing schools coming up. It's really making sure that they produce
Yeah.
quality international nurses.
And can I ask you, the people that you've brought to Ireland, have they felt valued here? Do they feel welcome here? Do they feel integrated here?
Yes, mostly, yes, I believe so. And, Ireland, when all is said and done, is a better place than UK. I mean,
Yeah.
not just saying that.
We'll have to apologise to the UK
Sorry,
audience.
anybody in the UK, nothing personal,
Yeah.
but it is. It's for families and for people. That's how we've always then got more people coming to Ireland than
Yeah.
to the UK.
Yeah, and we've seen, like in IHEED, we've seen a huge migration. Obviously you have people moving from the Philippines and India to the Middle East, then from the Middle East to here or Canada, US, and it's facilitating their career progression on those journeys. And obviously they're on an academic journey or also in terms of postgraduate education and looking to enhance their career, increase their mobility, increase their earning power. Have you seen, what healthcare organisations are doing to incentivise existing staff? I mean, you made some very good points, Seamus, around that, about what do they do to retain talent?
Yeah, and again, I keep going back to the pandemic. I think the pandemic changed everything for most industries.
Yeah.
That is, like, if you're looking for people today, if you're not talking about your wellness program,
Yeah,
if you're not talking about, access to mental health apps, if you're not talking about, fitness and essentially investing in the people, you're just not in the game. It's a very, very competitive business right now. So that's the major thing that I'm seeing. But again, what I would say is, and again, not to generalize, but the private sector really have mastered this. They're leading with this and they're so, so competitive. But when I look at academic, government, healthcare, a little bit slow to the game or to the table. They're coming, but they need to be more aggressive in regard to their value add.
yeah, and I thought like your point around teaching them soft skills and giving them and engaging with them early in the first year is really important. But I suppose what we found is people are really looking for proper career progression and making more money, and that involves the qualification. So, and organizations are now sort of saying to their staff, well, if you work with us for a 3 or 5 year period, we'll give you 50% of a postgraduate qualification, or, we'll reimburse that because their first year recruitment cost is 20% to recruit a new person.
That's right.
And they're better off to invest in the people they have. I mean, I was really interested in your stats around longevity.
Yes.
I mean, how long people will stay with an organization.
Yeah, a lot of that data actually was taken from the European Commission. So we've been working with the European Commission for the last 5 years, and ultimately they've come to the conclusion that they've drained the well from a talent point of view.
Yep.
So when it comes to them looking for data scientists, cybersecurity experts, all these kind of things, they look internally first. And together with us, we've defined what is classified as a skills taxonomy. So if you're a data scientist, these are the key skills. If you're a cybersecurity analyst, these are the key skills. And as a result, how do you close the skills gap? It's fascinating. They've spent, I would say at this stage, tens of millions, if not close to 100 million, on internal mobility for their existing 50-something thousand staff.
Yeah, I mean, when people come to work for you, they want to stay with you if there's a purpose and there's a mission, and if they're valued.
That's right.
And those things you spoke about, career progression and all of that. So if you provide that to them, they're more likely to stay with your organization, and that's a better approach, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah. Any final thoughts before we finish up? Any takeaways, Jared? What would you be saying to us?
Well, like I said, Ireland's better. I mean, people would come here. It's easier to get an Irish on the path to citizenship in Ireland than anywhere in Europe.
Yeah.
And so you work here for 4 years, and the 5th year, straight path. In the UK, you have to wait for about 9 years
Okay.
before you get any British passport. So that's great. And I think if that openness could be explored a bit more, even by policymakers,
Yeah.
to try and ensure that we get the right people in IT, in healthcare, in all these sectors, because there are people out there, they just don't know much about Ireland.
Yeah. Raphael?
I think a good final thought, Tom, it would be that every healthcare organization is going to become an education organization and can be helped to do that. There are a lot of possibilities for those hospitals and clinics and facilities to embrace some platform or educational programs, and they will have to become an institution of educational as well as clinical practice. And this is fantastic for people engagement, because especially considering the younger employees, they are less worried about the amount of money that they can gain more, but they are very worried about how much they can learn, they can specialize.
Thanks. Seamus?
Yeah, I think my closing remark would be it's a competition. I think the healthcare industry needs to get in the game and compete, because unfortunately people are not going to seek you out without you actually competing for them. So it's a competition.
Yep, I agree with that. So on behalf of all of you, I'd just like to thank the panel. And I think we're going to take a short coffee break, and then we'll be back for our Enterprise Ireland supported focus session on Southeast Asia. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Go on ahead.
time never cares if you're there or not there. All you ever needed was a simple plan. But you're doing well, I mean you're not dead. So let's celebrate while we still can. I know what they say, I could give a care. They talk so much on me, I must be doing something right. I saw my son today in the likeness of a full-grown man. So I'll celebrate while I still can. Ooh, on a clear day, you can see West LA, even downtown. I remember when I couldn't even see the point of stepping out the motherfucking house. Let it go, 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 let it go. Came too fix the truth from two. We came too far. How many others have walked the same ground you have? You'd be wise to pay attention to your old head. I spent the whole day throwing records in the deep bag. So let's celebrate while we still can. Captivated the fruits of my family tree. Where would I be without you? What would you do without me? It'd be a bad look, talking about what could have been. So let's celebrate while we still can. Ooh, on a clear day, you can see West LA, even downtown. I remember when I couldn't see the point, but now I'm at the point where I gotta figure it out. Let it go, let it go, let it go, let it go. I came to fixing up the tree with farm too. Be concerned about the money in your brother's hand. What's mine is yours. Thought you knew me better than that. I was under the impression that we all want the best of life. So let's celebrate while we still can.
The partnership of the board and the body of the fellow who's doing the maneuvers or the flowing directions with this wave. What interests me now, chaotic surfing, nervous surfing, and exceptional power, it has its merits, and it fascinates me. That's just not my direction. I can only speak for myself.
Crazy.
missed connection. In my mind, we shared a million dreams, lived 1,000 lives, answered every question. So surprised that in reality, what was real to me was a missed connection. You found a place deep in my mind, deep in my mind. It's not the same, it's not the same thing this time. Feel like all my sensations have turned to pain, 'cause there's no conversation, and it's been a couple days. Try not to think about you, it's hard to do. Try not to think about you, makes me so blue. Stuck in my head all day long. Replaying this, replaying that. I did 1,000 things wrong. Gotta pick up the pieces. We left them on the floor, 'cause we don't have a secret between us anymore. Try not to think about you, it's hard to do. Try not to think about you, makes me so blue. Try it not to think about you. 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 Try it not to think about you, it's hard to do. Try not to think about you, makes me so blue. Try not to think about you, it's hard to do.
Good afternoon. Our final session is a specific focus on healthcare in Southeast Asia, and we're really lucky to have some very large health groups and some great people here. I'd just like to introduce Kevin over here from Enterprise Ireland to come up and say a few words. Kevin heads the Enterprise Ireland Asia and Pacific region and is responsible for bringing all of the people over to us. Kevin is a fantastic advocate for healthcare delivery both in Ireland and abroad. Thanks.
Good afternoon, everybody. Got to the final session. I think today has been a really good first day. So as Tom said, my name is Kevin Ryan, Director for Enterprise Ireland, based in Singapore for the Southeast Asia region. I'm delighted to be here today leading a delegation from the Asian markets to Ireland. I want to say also thank you to David and the InvestNet team for a fantastic first day. Looking forward to tomorrow. And also Tom for moderating the sessions today. So I'm just going to talk a few minutes, well, maybe just 1 minute, just a little bit about EI and what we do, our mandate in terms of how we support life sciences and healthcare here in Ireland. So in terms of direct investment, so we support Irish companies to start, grow and scale from Ireland to international markets. So we do that in a number of ways. We provide investment through equity, direct equity into these companies. Some of the companies I know are here today. We also provide grants and funding for their leadership and supports for their leadership as well. We also help provide support and investment into the ecosystem here in Ireland. So over this past week, we visited some of this ecosystem. Yesterday, we were in Dundalk. We met with some examples, some great examples of life science ecosystems, DigiBio, which is a relatively new program, immersive program that's going to help future companies in the healthcare system. We also provide investment into our universities, again, to support our companies as they look to grow and scale. So that's all the work we do in Ireland. In an overseas context, we've 40 markets that we support, 40 countries we have offices in. So as I said, I'm in Singapore. We've colleagues here from Australia, supporting Australian, New Zealand markets, and also from Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, and others. So in terms of the work we do in an overseas context, it's really around market intelligence and creating opportunities and contacts for our companies to be able to compete in these global markets. So for today, and the reason we're here today, as I said, I'm here with my colleagues from Australia and Singapore to help a delegation that's coming from markets as far afield as New Zealand, Australia, Indonesia, Thailand, and Singapore. So we're great and we're delighted to be here today to support this delegation. And I'm also delighted to be able to introduce some of these people today that are here onto the next panel. So in terms of the people who are going to be joining us here today, we have Mr. Paul Gladwell, who is the ICT Project Director for Adani Health. We have Mr. Yong Yi Ming, COO of IHH Healthcare Singapore. We have Dr. Dun Damrongsak, Deputy CEO for BDMS in Thailand. And we have Mr. John Ashley from Head of Clinical and Patient Portfolio for the Southern Cross Healthcare in New Zealand. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce and invite all of those delegates to come up on the stage and to talk a little bit about their companies.
I'll introduce you. Thanks. Thanks, Kevin. I must say, having been a recipient of EI support in IHEED, it's just phenomenal. I don't know if people fully understand the level of support you get out in the markets in terms of embassies and ambassadors and access to the healthcare organisations. It's been absolutely phenomenal, and we're really appreciative of that support. So Paul's background, Paul is the ICT Project Director at Adani Private Hospital Group and the Digital Health Thought Leader in Australia at large. He's 30 years of hand-on experience encompassing ICT strategy development, program project management, relationship management, team leading and design. He's been in the health industry for a long time and has worked experiences in Australia, New Zealand and Southeast Asia. And his particular passion is seeing appropriately validated technology, which you'll be delighted with, Raphael, supporting clinical care and improving the patient experience through collaboration, innovation, integration and insight. Thanks, Paul.
Tom, and look, particular thank you to the Enterprise Ireland team and the Future Health Summit for the pleasure of being here and for inviting me to the wonderful city of Dublin. What I thought I would do before I get into my key subject or key topic is talk about the differences, a little bit of the differences between Ireland and Australia. We're 9 hours away, so I'm just getting over the jet lag. We're 17,000 kilometres away. We have a landmass that's about 90 times the size of Ireland, but only a population of about 5 times that. So there's a few little differences there. You have leprechauns, we have drop bears. Now, if you don't know what a drop bear is and you're thinking of coming to Australia, Google drop bear protection and you'll find out what a drop bear is. I also have to apologise that we do tend to steal quite a few of your GAA players, both your boys and your girls, your men and your women, into our AFL league, and a few of your nurses and policemen. So apologies, humble apologies. Despite the differences and despite the vast difference that we do have, there are a lot of similarities between the Irish and our Australian funding and our model of care. And what I think that offers, and I believe that it offers Irish digital health companies a really fantastic opportunity. Why? Well, what I'll do is I'll provide you with a little bit of a helicopter view of what our Australian healthcare system looks like and the similarities between both the public and the private models. So our public system, like yours, is federally funded. It's a vehicle that is funded through what we call a Medicare levy. So every taxpayer pays 2% of their earnings into Medibank, to the Medicare levy, sorry. And if you choose not to take out private healthcare, and individually or as a family you earn over certain amounts, then those tiers dictate that you will put a little bit more into the Medicare levy fund. So what that's trying to do is push those that can afford to take out private healthcare into that private healthcare model, free the public system up for those people who can't afford it. So Medicare, like your public health system, it subsidises, doesn't cover all the costs, but it subsidises your public hospital services, it subsidises your medicines, your pathology, your eye tests, your radiology, your neuroimaging, and a range of medical services at the GP level, so mental health assessments and basic dental for kids that can't afford it. So it's not a bad system, it does a really reasonably good job. Even though the federal government manages that bucket of money called Medicare, it's still left to the individual states and territories across Australia to actually manage and operate their public hospitals. And as a result of that, for those who are unaware, we have a number of states and territories around Australia. What that's actually led to is a varying degree of digital maturity across those states and different approaches to how that healthcare is delivered across our hospitals. So based on population numbers, and I'll work down from the most populous state to the least populous state, I'll give you an idea of what that public hospital healthcare maturity level looks like. We start off with New South Wales, which, for those who know Australia a little bit, it's the easternmost state on the coast there. They have had a statewide system, Oracle Health. Yeah, there they are, Oracle Health. They've been running Cerner in that state for many years, but they've just made the decision to replace that statewide system with Epic. Now, the budget for that at the moment is about 1 billion Australian dollars, 600 million euros, and it's expected to take about 10 years to transition all their hospitals from a Cerner platform to an Epic platform. Now that $1 billion, as you could probably imagine, is going to grow a little bit every year until they get to year 10, but they're also doing a really good job of standardising their pathology and radiology services so that will feed into what they're going to call their single digital patient record, or the SDPR. In Victoria, which is where I'm from, and in Melbourne, the government and the state decided not to go for a statewide approach. They tried it, didn't work so good. They've let the hospitals do their own thing. So you've got probably the majority of those hospitals, Cerner, a little bit of Epic getting more popularity there. Queensland, north of New South Wales, they've got a semi-standardised approach. Once again, mostly Cerner Oracle Health based, and they've got about 50% of their acute inpatient beds currently on that model. Moving over to the coast, WA, Western Australia, there's a mixture of paper, digital, and they recently announced a $100 million budget to start to transition their public hospitals over to a first stage of an EMR rollout. South Australia, they've had a system there called Sunrise, which is the Altera, EMR and PAS. Statewide approach once again, so the state government trying to get everyone on one platform. Down to the little island of Tassie, they've just gone to tender. They're about to select a statewide, although you can imagine state, a territory, is very small down there. Northern Territory up in the far north, they've been implementing the Track Care system, Acacia product or Acacia project, on a $260 million project, which recently they had to suspend due to problems with usability in their ED departments. So very different approaches. And finally, the most populous state in Australia, or the most populous territory, ACT, went statewide with Epic recently, but that's only about 2 or 3 hospitals. So you can see from a public hospital perspective, the big EMR vendors have got that market pretty well locked up from a core clinical and a PAS functionality perspective. So if we flip to the private market, Australia is very similar to you guys here in Ireland. We've got just under a 50% adoption or a 50% take-up of private health insurance. The difference is we've got about 12 million people paying for health insurance. You guys have got about 2, I think it is. So there's once again, similar sort of mix though, and that private healthcare model offers you that luxury of choosing the time, the place, and the clinician that you would like to perform any procedure or surgery on you. Similarly, we've got even if you go into a private hospital, the insurer won't necessarily cover all the costs of your procedure or your stay in hospital. So you may be left with what they call a gap. And that gap is representative of the cost to perform that procedure, whether it's the doctor, the anaesthetist, the assisting doctor, imaging, pharmacy, whatever that might be, what they will charge the patient and what the insurer will pay. So even though you pay an excess, like for your car or for your house, you do that with your medical insurance, you could then be left with a little bit more on top of that, and that could be $500,000, $2,000. So health insurance is good, but you're still going to be ending up being left with a gap at the end of your stay. And I'm not sure what the premiums cost here, but if you've got a family in Australia and you want to get the top level of cover with hospital and extras like physio and dental, you're probably looking at about 10,000 Australian dollars or 6,000 euros a year for those premiums. So it's not cheap. Which leads me on to a little bit of a story in the last couple of minutes about my hospital. So Adney Private, we haven't opened yet. We're about 4 months away from opening. It's a brand new hospital, greenfield site. Construction's due to finish in a couple of months, and then we'll start to run that commissioning process. So what makes it different, and why is it getting a little bit of press at the moment? So the model is different in that it's actually owned. It's a joint venture. 51% of the hospital is owned by a group of 42 doctors. The other 49% is owned by medical insurer Medibank Private. So therefore, what you've got is you've got doctors and investors have got a very, very keen interest in making sure that not just is that business profitable, but it's something that they want to bring their own patients to. And therefore, there's a big focus on that quality of care. So as I mentioned earlier, the other big difference is that private health insurance co-contribution, so even though you come in to get your hips or your knees done, you still get hit with a bill, despite the fact you're paying 10 grand a year. The way that the joint venture has been structured between the doctors and the insurers, there's a no out-of-pocket or no gap fee for the hospital, for the patient, sorry. So that's really attractive from an insurer's perspective. They can turn around and say, well, look, if you pay your premiums and you go to this hospital, you can get your hip done and you won't get charged anything extra. So that's the differentiator from this joint venture model. Comprehensive pre-admission is a big focus, and partnering with people for rehabbing or providers to rehab in the home, looking for and getting patients better prepared and to be able to recover more effectively from surgery. There's a big focus on patient experience, getting that customer-patient focus on the patient while they're in as an inpatient, and then partnering with key people in the primary care and the rehab industry to make sure that that is an optimal stay rather than focusing on it being short. It's an optimal stay and an experience for the patient. I'm running out of time rapidly, so I'll talk even faster. From an ICT strategy, one of the things that we had to focus on 3 things ICT-wise. Scaling to size, designing for growth and modelling for replication. Medibank would like to see about another 10 of these types of joint ventures stood up over the next 5 to 10 years over the eastern seaboard. We're small, we're like a startup as a hospital, so our focus was on cloud first or vendor hosted or SaaS. Even though we don't have our infrastructure in our basement yet, we've got about half of our systems all up and ready to go. They're configured, we're training on them already. Small hospitals can't afford or justify IT departments, so we've gone for a managed service, independent managed IT, independent SOC SIEM cybersecurity. That gives us some benefits in managing that risk mitigation. We've outsourced the responsibility for hardware, OS and application support, but we'll still take an on-prem backup of those key systems and then remotely take a copy off-site. One of the other key things, I'm getting the hard stares, multi-factor authentication, single sign-on, aligning HR, payroll and IT for roles-based identification. Greenfield site's great, no legacy systems, no legacy data, no legacy people. Challenge is there's no data, there's no people and there's no systems. So we've had a lot of fun with that. It's been really good. We've got a great group of people working together. Tying into Enterprise Ireland, one of the things that we did do was we tried to amalgamate multiple services or apps from one provider where possible. We've done that with Meg IT, fantastic IT company that we've worked with from Ireland. We've managed to put quality, audit, risk, document management into their application. So 3 or 4 apps into all functions into one, and OneView from a point of care and a clinical care delivery perspective. So they've been really good partners for us. We're starting small. We've got core functionality, interoperability designed to meet the basic needs of the hospital from day one. But as that, we're OPEX focused, not CapEx focused. As the business grows, as we can put more money back into those, we can build on the platform that we've got. Terribly over time, so I do apologise. Thank you very much for your time. Cheers.
Yeah, thanks a million, Paul. There were some great insights there, and some, I know you galloped through it, but you gave us some really good insights of what you're doing and what's going on in that new startup, and it's an interesting model even. So our next speaker is Mr. Yi Ming, who's the Chief Operating Officer of IHH Singapore. IHH is a very big Asian healthcare group. How many hospitals, Yi Ming? 84 hospitals across numerous countries, and he's the Chief Operating Officer of the Singapore hospital itself. What's interesting is he also was the General Manager of a commercial and Singapore's largest chain of private primary healthcare and ambulatory care facilities, and that's interesting. He's held a number of other positions, and interestingly, his present hospital has 345 beds, 650 doctors, 1,300 staff, and a $350 million multi-year live hospital redevelopment program. So he's a busy man. Yep.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you, Enterprise Ireland, for the invitation. As I was sitting here this morning listening to the various presentations, there are a few takeaways for me, even as from someone as far as away from Singapore. We all share similar healthcare issues. In Singapore, we do have an aging population issue. We do have a problem with healthcare resources, healthcare manpower. But there are some differences between Ireland and Singapore, and I did quite a quick Google earlier on just to verify some of the facts. So you have a population of about 5 million, am I right? Well, Singapore has a population of 6 million. I was sharing with some of the delegates earlier, we are about 5 million. I was wrong. I'm actually 6 million now, 2 years on, right? And then the other fun fact is we're actually 100 times smaller than Ireland in terms of geography, size, landmass, so on and so forth, right? So we're luckier in that sense because of our small land size. Accessibility to healthcare services in all parts of the healthcare value chain is not really a big problem for us. Because when you are talking about going to a primary care physician, you're really talking about a 5 minutes walk down your residence, and then your primary physician is there. All right. So some of the issues that I've heard this morning may not be applicable to Singapore, but we do have the same situation of fragmented healthcare. All right. We do have the issue of manpower. And I'm proud to say that Singapore is not responsible for your brain drain. We don't take Irish nurses. Yeah. But you do take nurses from Singapore. So this is one of those conferences when I stand here, I'm not worried about being beaten up at the end of it all. So in that context, I will share my presentation in 3 parts today. First, a quick overview of what IHH is, and then I will introduce the Singapore healthcare landscape, also giving you the lens from a public sector healthcare perspective, as well as how the interaction and dynamic with private healthcare in Singapore. And then I'll route it back to IHH Singapore, how we organize ourselves to meet the needs and demands of our patients in Singapore with regards to how the Singapore landscape is organized. All right, so just a quick introduction. IHH Healthcare, Tom did some great introduction earlier on, so I'm just going to skip some of this part. We're a leading healthcare service provider, global healthcare provider, 15.2 billion market cap as of 31st December 2023. We are listed, we're dual listing, listed on Bursa Malaysia and the Singapore Stock Exchange. And we're reputable major shareholders comprising Mitsui & Company and Khazanah Nasional Berhad. And that's some of the accolades that the organization has had. Now, some of these brands may be familiar to some of you, depending on where you operate in. I have a colleague from Fortis, Anu. Where are you, Anu? There he is. All right. Well, we are from IHH, but we are afraid to share that this was the first time we actually met. He's my counterpart from Fortis, right? So Fortis, Acıbadem, Gleneagles, Mount Elizabeth, Pantai, Parkway, and Prince Court are different brands of hospitals and healthcare business units that are actually within the healthcare ecosystem of IHH globally. So in all, we have 80 plus hospitals in 10 countries, 84 to be specific, 12,000 over operational healthcare beds, and 65,000 employees globally. Our vision, to be the world's most trusted healthcare services network. Operationally, we do operate in a very localized manner based on local cultural and service requirements, but we do share a common vision, common balance scorecards, and common clinical quality expectations. Our purpose, to touch lives, transform care. Our mission, to take exemplary care of our patients, anchored around our people who strive to continuously raise the bar in clinical, operational, and service excellence. I'm not going to go through, these are our core values. Essentially, most healthcare organizations put the patients in the center of what we do, and this is similar to IHH regardless of where you operate. So this is our core values among the others. Now, coming to Singapore and what the Singapore healthcare landscape is. By the way, the gentleman in the middle of the picture is Minister Ong Ye Kung. He's our Minister of Health in Singapore. And this was a picture taken in 2 years ago. Just when COVID was partially opened in Singapore, he came down to the private hospital, and my hospital at the point in time, Mount Elizabeth Hospital, was chosen by him to come and show his appreciation to the healthcare workers. So we are part of the national ecosystem, and in times of pandemic like COVID, even the private healthcare beds were asked to support the national capacity so that we can further carry on the national interests of the country. We have a very unique S+3M's public healthcare financing system, which I'll come to it in a part. We do have, that's the shape of Singapore, by the way, right? So from the left to right of Singapore is 42 kilometers. Not too long. You probably take less than 3 hours to finish a drive around Singapore, right? But despite the small size, we have organized ourselves into 3 public clusters in Singapore, as represented by the 3 colors on the map, 3 integrated regional health systems. All right, they are called regional health clusters because within each cluster, there are acute hospitals, there are primary care service providers, there are nursing homes, community hospitals, and of course, primary care providers within each cluster. All right, so we are divided into a central region, which is known as the National Healthcare Group, the eastern region, the Singapore Health Services, and the western region, which is the National University Health System. So where is the private operator in this part of the whole ecosystem? We are basically splattered across the island, not part of any cluster, but we do have an informal relationship with some of these government hospitals. When the need comes, we will supplement and support operationally when necessary. Now, a lot of today's discussion hinges on accessibility to healthcare. In Singapore, we do have this S+3M's public healthcare financing framework. First, the government does give a certain degree of subsidy for Singaporeans, depending on your income group and how much you earn, all right? So you can have up to 90% subsidy if you're from the lower income group, and maybe just 10 to 20% subsidy if you're on the higher income group. And that really depends on the choice of hospital, the choice of beds within the government hospital. And this subsidies really only applies to you if you're a Singapore citizen and you choose to access your healthcare within the government hospital. So if you choose to come to IHH hospital, there's no subsidies, right? That's basically what it means. Secondly, we have what we call MediSave. In a simple terms, it's like a forced saving for those of us who are working adults. If you work, you collect a monthly salary, a certain percentage of that is forced into this, what we call a MediSave savings account. And it kind of accumulates as you get older. When you need to access healthcare later on, that's where you can access and tap on your MediSave savings, depending on which part of your life cycle or of life phases that you are at. You're able to tap into MediSave to supplement the subsidies or your own personal insurance when necessary. Then there's a MediShield. It's kind of like a global pooling of insurance where the government actually manages this large pool of insurance policy that is actually distributed to Singaporeans. This is really to supplement healthcare's rising costs. As the healthcare costs increase, the basic subsidies of healthcare in Singapore is not sufficient for certain kind of conditions. Hence, MediShield Life was introduced to allow Singaporeans to access some of these higher intensive services, and also to allow those who can afford it to go to private healthcare or single bed hospitals, all right, so that you can have and enjoy the environment of a private healthcare, while the lower income Singaporeans can access healthcare in the government hospital. So in a nutshell, this is generally how it is structured. And then finally, of course, we have MediFund. This is really comprising a committee in various government hospitals. When you are not able to access healthcare from any of the three financing framework above, there will be a committee to decide how much money they're going to put on you so that you can continue your healthcare journey with the government hospitals. So in Singapore, it's a mixed delivery model. The public sector actually dominates the acute care sector, delivering about 80% of the care in this sector. All right, so that's the hospital. We are looking at about 20,000 beds in public healthcare, and by 2030, we expect the number of beds to go up to 30,000. In the private hospital, we have colleagues from Thomson, all right? We're all part of the private sector landscape in Singapore. We only have probably about 1,600 beds. So we're relatively small by size. So you can imagine why that is the case. But in the primary care sector, it's the reverse. 80% of primary care is actually handled by the primary care physicians in the private sector. Just to give you a statistics, about 2,000 over primary care physicians distributed across the small island of Singapore, and hence accessibility to primary healthcare is not an issue for us. We also have step-down care sector within the cluster itself, and Renci and St. Luke's are just two examples of this. All right, just going to quickly go through this concept of Healthier SG. It started sometime around 2018. It's still an evolving framework, essentially empowering patients, trying to go into the preventive health concept. Patients are supposed to be able to take care of themselves, do health screening, know where you are, your baseline, take care of yourself so that you stay out of the hospital later on. Essentially, that's what it means. But there are a lot of activities that come into it. We have to mobilize nationally the various network of healthcare providers, both private and public, so that we're able to support the 6 million Singapore residents in this journey. And as we go on, each individual Singaporeans will have a health plan, customized and personalized for yourself, and you have a family physician tagged to you. You have to choose your own family physician, right? So you're not allowed to go clinic hopping. You have someone dedicated to you, someone who knows you and goes on with you for the rest of the journey, for the rest of your life, so on and so forth. So this is a big paradigm shift to right-side care into the community, and then, of course, to approach healthcare from a reactive to a preventive landscape. This is still an evolving thing. It has started. As a country, we are evolving. Just to give you one quick example, when we go and buy a cup of coffee in Singapore, our health minister likes to say this, right? Initially, you buy a cup of coffee, you say coffee with milk, right, and sugar. In Singapore, he says the default is coffee, no sugar. You want sugar, you add yourself. So this is one quick example of a daily routine that we're all trying to get into the lives of Singaporeans so that you have this mental awareness that this is part of your daily lifestyle that matters over time. Okay, I got to move on. Okay, IHH Healthcare Singapore. I'm just going to quickly go through 4 hospitals. Mount Elizabeth Hospital in Orchard, for those of you who go to Singapore. This is one of the few hospitals in the world, I dare say, who actually coexist with the shopping belt. And it's quite a good motivation to work there, I must say. I run the hospital, by the way. This is Mount Elizabeth Novena. This is a slightly different hospital. It's actually in one of Singapore's healthcare clusters, Tan Tock Seng Hospital. So this is right next to a national hospital like Tan Tock Seng Hospital. We have Gleneagles Hospital, a name which is probably more popular and well-known in this part of the world. All right, 65 years old history. All right, this is actually a hospital that serves a lot of foreign and expatriate patients. We have Parkway East, much smaller hospital, about 100 beds, essentially a pediatric and maternity hospital. Okay? And I'll just quickly go through this map of Singapore with a lot of dots. This is just to show you the IHH Singapore distribution of primary care network of clinics. All right? Each of these clinics is not big. Some of these are as big as just one doctor clinic. And what we do is the primary care family medicine services that I share with you. So this is the distribution. There are about 50 of them, and of the 2,000 over GP clinics in Singapore. Okay? So with that, I come to the end of my presentation. Thank you for your time.
Thanks a million. Thanks, Hugh. I mean, it's fascinating that, you know, the parallels between Singapore and Ireland just in terms of population, but the scale and the size is so different. We look forward to some questions afterwards. Dr. Dun Damrong Sak is the Deputy CEO of BDMS Hospital Group in Thailand. And how many hospitals have you? 59 hospitals. So he's been the chairman of the board of directors, managing director of their international hospital holding company. I've had the good fortune to visit the hospital on a number of occasions, or some of the hospitals and the HQ, and it's pretty impressive. So over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Bangkok Hospital, the #1 healthcare provider in your mind. Bangkok Hospital was established over 50 years ago. Since then, we have expanded our expertise to include Bangkok Heart Hospital, Bangkok Cancer Hospital, Wattanasot, and Bangkok International Hospital, specialized in bone and brain care. We have treated people in the country and foreign patients annually from all over the world. At Bangkok Hospital, we are committed to be #1 in every aspect of medical services, to provide you excellent and precise care that you deserve. We have skillful specialists in their respective medical fields, including nurses, medical and laboratory technicians, as well as other supporting professionals. Our facility combines innovative treatments with state-of-the-art technology. The campus can accommodate more than 500 beds, including emergency rooms, intensive care units, and modern operating theaters. Our multidisciplinary team of doctors and nurses can design effective treatment plans best suited for individual patients. Rest assured, if required, our medical evacuation team can safely transfer emergency and critical patients by air, land, and sea. You can trust our high-quality specialized care in heart disease, cancer, bone and brain, you can trust the quality of our health care. We are fully committed to provide effective medical services to become your #1 healthcare provider.
สวัสดีครับ My name is Dr. Dun. I'm from BDMS. And first of all, I would like to thank Enterprise Island to having me here. And then again, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce the hospital in Bangkok. I would like to start on the healthcare in Thailand very briefly, and then go through our hospital, and then talk about our unique in terms of the trauma network and the hospital and the referral center. So the outline, we'd like to talk, we have the public and private. So again, the public is, we have a universal coverage. So all the Thai people have coverage. Anyone working, they will have the social security to cover. And again, we have health insurance to top up in case that you would like to access into a better service. So this gives opportunities for the private sector to go with the self-pay and the health insurance. Again, to comply to open the private hospital in Thailand is quite difficult. There are so many regulators from the Ministry of Health in terms of the Ministry of Commerce to control your price. But again, we managed to open right now. We have 59 hospitals in our group. Again, you have to comply with the standard. And if you would like to go for the international, you have to benchmark with some other hospital in overseas. So we choose JCI to be one of the international standard for almost 20 years now in the hospital. And again, there are many standards that you comply all this international. So again, in terms of the healthcare in Thailand, BDMS is a holding company, and we are listed in the stock exchange of Thailand. So we are a profit company. Currently, we have 59. When I prepared this slide, it's 58, but now we have one more. So we have 6 brands, and we have non-hospital business as well. Right now, we have 8,600 beds, over 12,000 doctors, and 8,500 over nurses. We have 14 centers of excellence, and we are focused now on the heart, brain, bone, cancer, and trauma. Again, I would like to point some of the unique of Bangkok. We do what we call is medical tourism, in which that besides of Thai food that you know, Thai healthcare also one of the products that the government would like to push to bring in the tourism to Thailand. So again, currently we have around 75% that are Thai people, and the other is expat and fly-in patients that come to our hospital. Surprisingly, if you see that the number 1 that we have now is Myanmar. Myanmar is the nationality that come. The other will be UAE, Qatar, Cambodia, Bangladesh, Kuwait, China, US, and Maldives, and Japan. This is the nationality that come to use our service. And for the expat living in Thailand, Japanese is one of the most in our country now. So again, with many of our hospitals around the country, and we have 2 in Cambodia. One thing that we face the problem is on the trauma care, because we cannot have a good hospital in every city. So what we do is that we select some of the hospital to be a trauma hub, 1 in the north, 1 in the south, and 3 in the middle. So then we have to develop and to make them to support other 50 hospitals when we need to transfer the patients, including some of the tertiary care facilities. So the most important is transportation patient to the hospital. And that is why it's quite unique that we have to develop in terms of the Medivac for our group, in which that we can do by air ambulance, by road ambulance, and also we have some hospital on the island we have to do by the boat. We call hydrorans, which is by the boat. So at the moment, we are 24/7. And also some of our customer is in another country, like in Myanmar or in Bangladesh. So again, we have to have the capacity to bring them during when they have acute care to come to Thailand. So ambulance is one of the most useful to bring the case. So at the moment, into the north, we can do cover to China, Korea, Japan. To south, we can go to Bali. And from the west, we can go to UAE and Bangladesh. And east, we go to Philippines and Vietnam. This is our patients come from. Again, we have to do something quite difficult, like ECMO air transport. For anyone who's not a doctor, ECMO is just like a heart lung machine. So at the moment, some of our hospital cannot do. So we have to send the teams and then bring the case back to our center in Bangkok. And for neonate as well, when they get born in some of our small hospital, then we have to evacuate them back to the center as well. So that is our unique in terms of the air transport that we have. Again, I would like to finish my speech. And again, thank you very much. ขอบคุณครับ
Thanks very much. Thank you. Again, just the size and the scale of the operation and the breadth of services being provided is spectacular. So Mr. John Ashley is the head of clinical and patient portfolios at Southern Cross Healthcare in New Zealand. John is probably the one who's travelled the furthest to be here. And it's amazing he's awake at all. He's passionate about enabling better care through digital health. John leads the digital health services portfolio that provides clinical solutions to Southern Cross Healthcare's 2,500 clinical users, including nurses, medical specialists, and allied healthcare professionals, to deliver quality for many thousands of New Zealanders. He served on the board member and deputy chair of the Health Informatics New Zealand and was inducted as their fellow in 2023. So I welcome John to share his thoughts.
Well, I can say I'm having metrics envy when I hear about Brazil and Thailand and Singapore, but it's a real pleasure to be here today. As Tom's introduced, I'm John Ashley. He's told you what my role is. I'm really proud to represent Southern Cross Healthcare and New Zealand today. So I wanted to give you a quick snapshot of New Zealand's health profile. Just like Ireland, we've got a population of just over 5 million, and of which around 20% are our indigenous population of Māori. And we've got a really large population, migrant population from parts of Asia and also the Pacific Islands. New Zealand's healthcare system is stretched and competing for resources and talent on a global stage, something we've heard right throughout today. Also, thanks, Paul, for the outflux of nurses, doctors and police as well to Sydney and Melbourne. So it's been noted. It's on your record. I'm sure there's no surprise there that we're in a global market. You'll see that our health spend is on par at around $6,000 per capita from the earlier discussion from Robert. So we probably spend about the same. And you'll see that some stats against the OECD averages. We've got a reasonable number of healthcare professionals per capita, but never quite enough. So competition for access, so equity of access is a problem in New Zealand. And we've also got a whole bunch of other contributing factors, and these include faring quite poorly in the areas of cancer mortality, obesity, child vaccination rates, waiting times for surgery, and the ratio of people with long-term conditions receiving care at home. So very lucky to work for Southern Cross Healthcare. This is the Central Lakes Hospital in Queenstown. If anyone is into skiing, snowboarding, mountain biking, or fine dining, you might want to head there. I've never actually been to this hospital yet, so I'm looking forward to it. But it's the best looking hospital for a conference. So we're New Zealand's largest private provider of healthcare services, predominantly through our 19 surgical hospitals, but we also have a very large physiotherapy business, We've got other rehab businesses. We've got a workplace health and mental health business units as well. And our vision is to help people live their best lives by reimagining healthcare. I want to just give you, for people in the audience to know, a lot of healthcare leaders here, so just understanding how our health system is constructed. Just a glimpse, this is not all the players, but we have also a universal healthcare system, and the main entity that we deal with in the public system is called Health NZ, or Te Whatu Ora in Māori. That's our central agency that manages all the commissioning, planning for delivery of care. It's got a tiny 80,000 population of workers, which is actually the largest employer in New Zealand, and a 30 billion annual budget. I'm not sure if I agree with that, maybe 20. Ministry of Health sets policy, they're the regulator, and they actually are there to help set up the conditions for delivering healthcare in the country. And of course, they were the ones who built Te Whatu Ora as a delivery arm through the recent healthcare transformation that we went under in about 2 years ago. Quite interesting for New Zealand, we have a no-fault system. So we have a national insurer called Accident Compensation Corporation, or ACC, and that's our government-owned injury compensation scheme. And that's really important to us as a private healthcare company. We get a lot of funding for injury, knee replacements or whatever as a result of injury will come from ACC versus other revenue streams from private insurers. There's lots of literature on the website, so if anyone's interested in learning more about the system, there's really good information on their strategies. This is the public strategies I'm talking about. And I just want to move from there to talk really about challenges that we're all facing here. So in New Zealand, we struggle with issues, social determinants of health, as we all know, are so important. And poverty is one of those. We see that inequity of healthcare access and outcomes, particularly in Māori. We're seeing overcrowded housing, which has knock-on effects, which we well know, around respiratory disease and so on. And then low health literacy, which is also holding us back. I won't thrash to death the workforce problem that we're having, but I think not only is it an ageing population, but an ageing care workforce. And of course, our newly trained medical professionals are taking a one-way trip overseas, or maybe not a one-way trip. We do have a rural-urban split, so envious of the Singapore compactness. So it's hard to deliver care remotely into our back blocks. Migration, competition for funding, resources, and then the rising costs to provide healthcare services. New Zealand's undergoing quite a high inflation rate at the moment. I just wanted to really share some information from our Chief Medical Officer's perspective. Dr. Erica Winare-Kelly recently joined our company, and she's been amazing. She gave a really amazing speech around all aspects of healthcare, but I pulled out a couple of key points, and I like the point that she said here. Investment in clicks, not bricks, is key to New Zealand overcoming the health sector challenges. We won't get more workforce. We need to make that. We need to use that workforce more smartly, different types of workforce, extend the reach of our care through telehealth and that sort of thing. She also talks about the importance to involve women in the decisions, and that's a key to avoiding having to ration healthcare. Women are actually responsible for 80% of the health purchasing decisions in New Zealand, and even 60% of single women are making decisions for others in terms of healthcare. And Erica pointed out something really concerning, actually, that the diagnostic tools that we're using are different between men and women. The most common cause of death for women is cardio and cerebrovascular disease. In cardiac disease, women often do not have the same pathology as men, and they have different risk factors that are not listed in the standard cardiac risk calculators. And largely, I see a lot of nodding heads here, largely that's because women were generally excluded or underrepresented in the clinical studies and trials. So according to Erica's findings, women are 50% more likely to die from an acute cardiac event than men. They'll be slower to receive analgesia in an emergency department, and the dose will be smaller. And if you compare excess cancer deaths in New Zealand to Australia, you'll find that there are 3 times more for women than men. She does point out, though, that there's opportunities to improve, and that one of the things we can do better is to train our clinicians and the people, or support our clinicians and the people who work to deliver solutions with them to work more closely together. And that brings me to the point here that I think we need more underwater welders. So if you were going to build, if you needed to get some welding done on your offshore oil rig, are you going to train a welder to scuba dive or a scuba diver to weld? And it comes down to probably it's a little bit of both. So this metaphor, which I stole from our New Zealand's Chief Clinical Informatics Officer, Lara Hopley, likens the underwater welding to the role of health informatics, the confluence of clinical and technology and also business workforces. So we need to teach doctors and nurses about technology and provide technologists with exposure to and the ability to learn from clinicians in their places of work. This allows both groups to build trust, to join up and have a common understanding of the problems to solve, and then agree on the best options to move forward. At Southern Cross Healthcare, we've made a real significant progress in this area. With the support of our leadership team, we've appointed clinical informatics liaisons across our hospital network. We've a clinical informatics lead role as part of our National Support Office and Nursing Directorate. And we see that as a huge enabler in delivering further value across the business and across the wider health ecosystem through digital initiatives. And as someone said from one of our hosts at Dundalk Institute of Technology yesterday, digital health is 10% technology, 90% change management, and so this really matters. So digital health is a journey, not a destination. That was what a paper record might have looked like before we implemented our EMR. We've gone on to deliver over time with our partners, Orion Health, a great patient record. We've digitised a whole bunch of paper flows, workflows. We've introduced a digital front door for our patients to access forms and knowledge. And then organisations like Daedalus for patient administration systems and a whole host of suppliers for infection control systems, medical devices, anaesthetic records, endoscopy suites, surgical robots, microscopes, and so on. The work and ongoing investment to support, protect, and maintain this diverse range of technology is considerable. So wherever possible, we're looking for ways to simplify, converge, and better leverage our technology stack. If you'd like to learn more about the digital health ecosystem, I can recommend these organisations: Health Informatics New Zealand, Digital Health Association, of course, Te Whatu Ora themselves, or Health NZ. So it's a Future Health Summit. It's amazing that we're now 40 years past Orwell's dystopian predictions of 1984. And Doc Brown flew his Mr. Fusion home energy reactor-powered DeLorean back from 2015, which is about 9 years ago. And Skynet begins to learn rapidly and eventually becomes self-aware on August 29, 1997, which was 27 years ago, listen to this though, leading to a horde of AI bots taking over the Earth. So how's the future looking so far? Don't fear the bots. Rather than fearing the rise of AI and technology, I'm looking forward to a future where data and digital, and of course artificial intelligence, play an increasingly significant role in improving patient and clinician experience, in enabling more equitable access to healthcare services, and delivering better health outcomes for people globally. I'm grateful also to Enterprise Ireland for hosting and being able to be here in Dublin comparing notes with my colleagues from the Asia Pacific region and Ireland and around the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. I mean, what's fascinating is we've got 3 countries, New Zealand, Singapore, and Ireland, with same population. totally different geographical distribution. One of the things I couldn't get over visiting New Zealand was just how dispersed the population is. I mean, in terms of a landmass compared to Ireland. Can you give us a sense of the scale of the landmass?
Yeah, it's tall and skinny. There's almost
I got
no one in
that.
the South
I
Island.
got that.
You can drive a long way without seeing a car on the road. No, I couldn't give you the exact, it would be interesting, but yeah, there's a lot of empty space. That 5 million population is concentrated around Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch, and then nothing.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, one of the statistics I remember was the South Island of New Zealand is the same as the full length of Great Britain.
Yes.
So it gives you some sense of the scale. So, you know, obviously it's been interesting. You've been on much more of a digital health journey to solve that distribution problem.
We have. Yeah, we have. And I mean, for us, I'm representing both, you know, the public system, you know, in terms of knowledge, but private. You know, we're elective, so people travel to us for their surgeries. But, you know, Central Lakes Hospital in Queenstown, we can't actually do certain types of surgery because of the steep hills. If something went wrong, we needed to move to a public hospital. It's we may be landlocked, locked in by the weather. So it makes decisions about like bariatric cases have to be treated in Christchurch. So the geography does play a role in healthcare decisions and what we can treat.
Yeah, I remember I digress, but I was down in New Zealand and we were climbing Mount Aspiring in the South Island, and the weather closed in and the mountain was closed for about a week. But there were 2 Argentinians lost on the mountain because obviously the weather systems come in so fast in the Southern Island, which is amazing because it's such a narrow landmass. The weather changes very quickly. So just Paul, it was very interesting to understand about a new hospital and putting infrastructure in ahead of opening the hospital from a greenfield site. And I'm sure some of the people here who are working on those kind of projects would appreciate that. So talk about small and agile versus big tech and, some of those solutions when you were looking at that.
Yeah, look, sure. It's one of the things we found when I came on board just over 14, 15 months ago. There was some strategy, some architecture, some decisions had already been made.
Yeah.
We still had to finish the selection and kick off 32, 33 individual projects.
Yeah.
And so what we had to do was look at the organisations that we were working with, and a big traditional long-winded implementation planning study, all of that sort of just would not have worked. We wouldn't have had the time to do that with the hospital that we were building, the staff that we had. When I joined, there were only 6 staff working for the hospital. There are still only 11, 12 people. So we've got staff earmarked for recruitment. But we needed vendors, and particularly so the vendors that we've dealt with through Enterprise Ireland, with Meg and with OneView, they understood that we actually needed to run in that agile type manner. Still not putting to one side all care and all governance of security, approach, stability, and all of those sort of things had to be there, but we had to work with them in that iterative manner to say, okay, here's part of the requirement, let's do that. Here's another part of the requirement, do that. And a big company just couldn't cope with that. But having that flexibility to work with vendors who could see this was the first joint venture of potentially many more, it required an investment and in us as an organisation and us as a group of people to trust that what we were doing was going to work. And we've got vendors now that traditionally wouldn't dream of working with each other in a collaborative space. We've got a group that meets every 2 weeks. Our 4 key vendors meet together in a room and they actually work together. Which is surprising, and I think they get a little bit surprised that they're having a conversation with each other, and I'm trying to coordinate rather than dictate and orchestrate. So they needed to do that to be able for us to achieve what we wanted, but it was imparting that vision on them that this was something that could work really well, and did they want to be part of the journey?
Yeah, and clearly you mentioned 4 principles. What were they again?
So look, we've got a PAS vendor, we've got a digital medical record vendor, we've got an oncology system, and we've got a point of care system. So a point of care system is OneView, an Irish company. We've got a local PAS vendor, a local digital medical record, and a local oncology system. But they're really our key systems for our hospital, our medical infusion centre, a PAS for admitting, scheduling, and coding and billing, the digital medical record, because while we will still have paper, we need that to be able to come in, but that also takes feeds from some of our other systems, so we can bring that information and make it available. So yeah, they would, a bigger company, if we had a Meditech or an Epic, or I think they would fall over and go into a catatonic state if we asked them to meet with other vendors every 2 weeks and start to talk to each other.
Yeah, because to totally understand that. And you mean, you know, it was interesting to hear about your, you know, you've such a structured system across the country, both in ambulatory and primary care and the hospital. How are they connected? Or
Yeah, but if you took the public sector perspective, what we're trying to do is to nationalize the electronic medical records. So that is a journey that started about a decade ago. It's still ongoing. I think the gap currently is to get the private healthcare providers like IHH, for example, onto the same bandwagon. So the idea is that what everyone knows is to have all the physicians have one eye on the same patient, so that from the coordination of care, and of course, from the payer perspective or healthcare cost perspective, we hope that in the process we can eliminate unnecessary healthcare costs as a result of repeated tests, so on and so forth. So it's a journey that is ongoing. I think the issue is similar to everyone. It's getting the same data point, getting the same language, and especially an organization like IHH, where we are quite global, the way we manage our healthcare data may not be 100% fit to what the government in Singapore requires. So we're still trying to tussle with that. But within the government system, there is already some form of integration in terms of the system and the way the medical records of the patients are interfaced.
Yeah, very good, very good. And Dr. Dum, I'm really interested in your medical tourism. You know, and I suppose I expected to see some of the countries on there. So do you actually actively go out looking to attract people from those countries?
Yes, we need marketing activities with them. So and for example, like in the Middle East, they have their own exhibition that we have to join, and our client is the government or some of the big corporation in the Middle East. So we also have to send the doctor to to visit them.
Yeah, and I mean, it's funny, I live in County Tipperary, and my neighbour in County Tipperary goes to BDMS in Thailand for his annual assessment and has a holiday. And I was fascinated by this. So he wasn't in your statistics, but you know, and it was also interesting to see the Qatar figure number 2 for such a country with such a small population. And some of the other countries were interesting as well. But when you draw a map around, you know, like you did a beautiful graphic of that, and you look at the countries that fall into your catchment area, they're quite significant, aren't they? I mean,
the geographic still important. I think if you can see that the country that have direct flight within the 6 hours is still our client, still our patients.
Yeah, within that geography. I suppose I'd love to hear about what all of you feel about the potential for collaboration with between you. You've been here today, and I'd love to hear 2 things. One, what surprised you? And then secondly, what opportunities you believe there is for collaboration. Do you want to start?
Yes, I'm very surprised to see the active of the healthcare segment here and the support from the government, in which that it's very clear that you have a very good like a software, good education, and the government is really support. It's unlike in Thailand that the private sector have to support themselves, and and also some of the software that I've been have a chance to meet is quite possible to match with our HIS that we have to work on too.
Yeah, it's great to hear.
Thank you very much for
thank you.
Good opportunity here.
No, thank you, Yamin.
Yeah, from Singapore perspective, I think there are a lot of innovation and tech that I've seen in just the last 48 hours, right? And Singapore don't really look at Ireland, all right, for solutions currently. I think there are a lot of opportunities for Singaporeans to get to know what Ireland technologies and innovation. In fact, just a session yesterday, the whole Singapore group of us, we were all interested in a certain solution to help us with medication management. right? Medication management is something that all of us healthcare administrators, we do on a daily basis. But there are always solutions that kind of have that feel in you, that kind of helps you solve a certain pain point. And that was something that most of us actually felt yesterday, even from a simple briefing that we had. So I think more exposure to Ireland technologies and innovation will be good, all right? Because what Singapore, no matter what we say, we usually look at the traditional sources for solutions, all right? We have very little, although we are also on building up our innovation know-how, but we look at the usual places for solutions currently. So I think there's definitely opportunity for that.
Thanks very much. John?
Yeah, I'd like to echo Dr. Dunn. The support from the Irish government and the EU with Horizon, having quite significant tranches of funding to support innovation, a bet that may or may not pay off, but you know, the ones that have paid off have gone full commercial, and so they're returning dividends. I think it's great. Definitely really impressed by the enthusiasm, the calibre of the people we've met with, both yesterday and in the event today. And one thing I didn't say, because this is not really a digital health conference, but one of the things I think around collaboration is the ability for standards like HL7 Fire to actually provide a common, and terminology services to provide a common language internationally that we can harness so that you know, we're able to use it as Paul has and as we do at Southern Cross, Irish suppliers who actually can just dovetail their digital records in with ours because we don't have to negotiate and handshake on what specifications for the data we're going to share. We're going to use some agreed global standards. So the real opportunity there, I think, is around supporting standards. And really my challenge to the audience who are probably investing in these technologies themselves is that let's pay a little bit extra to do it right rather than the cheap solution of just I'll send you a file. You know, so let's try and do it with full interoperability, and you know, I think that's a real opportunity. But super enthusiastic for contacts from Irish providers of technology to talk to us because we see that strong affinity between our markets.
Yeah. Thanks, John. Paul?
Yeah, well, I think that consensus is that it's how impressed I've been, I think most of the delegates have been, with the investment, the clarity of vision, the passion of people involved out at DKIT yesterday, the innovation that's coming out, the ideas that are coming out, and the enthusiasm and the support that they're getting through the EU, through Enterprise Ireland, to support those companies to look, from a small place in the world to a much bigger stage. That's been incredibly eye-opening for me, I think. We've seen a little bit of that through exposure through Enterprise Ireland and through the companies that we've started working with. Opportunities are there. I think the challenge is the fact that you're so geographically far away from Australia, New Zealand and Asia. It's aligning with those markets, having a challenge of local presence on the ground, but then timing that with where a customer might be at. What's the sales cycle? Where are they? Is it right now, today, or is it going to be next week? And finding a way to showcase those skills and talents and products and services because, as John said, they're interoperable. They will fit with our systems. And while the big public market and the big EMR vendors might have got a bit of a chokehold on that, there's complementary systems that sit on the boundaries of those core systems. There's a massive ecosystem, interoperability, patient-centered care. People want to go from being a recipient of healthcare to being a participant in their healthcare. And there's some really good solutions out there at the moment. And likewise, really keen to keep working with you guys over here.
Yeah, great. And look, we're very grateful for your presence here. I'd just like to call on Tom Kelly, the Divisional Manager for Enterprise Ireland, who's just arrived, to just say some closing remarks. But certainly, we're enormously appreciative as a group of professionals who are involved in shaping the healthcare system here in Ireland for your presence, your expertise, and for sharing so much about your healthcare systems. I mean, what I've been impressed when I've visited a lot of the large hospital groups in Asia is just the level of service and humility and the scale, your ability to just scale, in terms of, we're just quite a small little place here of 4 or 5 million people or 5 million people. So thanks, Tom.
I work up.
Do, sure. The good news, just while Tom is walking up, is that there's a drinks reception afterwards, hosted by Pulse IT. So for anybody who has the opportunity to hang around for a little bit, there'll be some refreshments provided to the thirsty speakers and other members of the audience. Yeah.
So thank you very much, Tom, and thanks for your patience as well in kind of allowing me, to have that long walk. And first of all, I need to thank David and to InvestNet for the invitation to be able to address this audience, and particularly to thank you, Tom, indeed, for all of the work, the hard work that you're putting in moderating, the panel sessions, because, it is an art in itself to actually get the best. And I think listening to the panel discussion here this afternoon, I could see so much insight that was there, and I think people benefit from that. It's always kind of one of these occasions, like where somebody like me gets up, from Enterprise Ireland, as part of the senior management team of Enterprise Ireland, but actually all the hard work is done by colleagues. And particularly colleagues like Kevin Ryan, who leads for us in Asia and Singapore based, and indeed all of the Asia Pac team, because of the work that they do in building the connections and identifying people, of real relevance, I think, in the sense of the interest that Enterprise Ireland and Ireland has in relation to making connections in healthcare. So I do want to acknowledge the work of Kevin and his colleagues. And in saying that, I think it really, is wonderful to see so many different people and so many delegates. In Ireland, in the last number of years in particular, John, we very much have a warm welcome for New Zealanders. It wasn't always like this. So I think that I've listened, to the discussions here, and we have a few slides, in relation to Enterprise Ireland. So maybe if I can just position the Enterprise Ireland very briefly, and then I just want to make a few comments on some of the messages that I've heard. But the real value of all of this, I think, is to be able to hear, to listen, and to be able to connect. And actually, more than anything else, what I would want is for people to go away very conscious of the capabilities that exist in Ireland. And I think I was getting some flavour of that message is been received. Because we have a hugely innovative capability. And it's something, I suppose, that we are proud of. And it's not unique to us. But the piece that is kind of very much something to be proud of is in the healthcare system and in the support systems in the general life sciences, it certainly has been a really goldmine in terms of innovative activity over several years now. So Enterprise Ireland, we're the state agency, the agency of the Irish government, which has the responsibility of bringing, I suppose, forward ambitious businesses, to get them to start, to innovate, because that's critical differentiator. And yes, we are kind of a 5-point-something million population in this state, but I think we're very conscious, for success for Ireland and for Irish businesses, we have to succeed in a global marketplace, in a global world. And in succeeding, it's not just simply a marketplace, it's about building those connections, building those alliances, and building those partnerships. We deal with several thousand Enterprise Ireland supported companies. We sit alongside our sister agency, the IDA Ireland, which has been instrumental in bringing some of the very best companies in life sciences into Ireland. And we have benefited enormously from that kind of proximity. And indeed, they have provided us with opportunities to, I suppose, as a market, as customers, but much more importantly, in terms of the contribution those companies have made, if you like, into understanding the challenges, that companies have to meet in providing for healthcare. The supports that we then provide kind of range over many different aspects of business, from the start right through. But more than anything else, what we want to do is build long-term sustainable businesses that can provide solutions that are relevant for the here and now and into the future. And a mission that we describe is generally to accelerate this world-class companies. We are a global entity. We actually have, we're second to our Department of Foreign Affairs in terms of government organizations in terms of international presence. We have 39 offices spread throughout the world, including kind of New Zealand and Australia, right across Europe, obviously, North America, South America, into the Middle East. And that's hugely important for us because it's connecting those companies that I talked about to the rest of the world that becomes so important to us. And in terms of support, the support is particularly, I suppose, directed towards building companies that are innovative, that are global in their orientation, and actually have that capability, from day one, to look into the markets, the world in a global sense, and provide solutions of relevance. So we support companies at a startup stage. Critically, we support them literally through all of their life, from the time that they were kind of at the startup, before there were ever even companies, right through to companies that are very large in scale, multinational Irish companies, particularly supporting research and development in companies. And it's connecting those companies to a support system that goes beyond those companies, and I'll mention that again in another slide. That collaborative approach to innovation is crucial to us, because the solutions are never found inside the walls of one company or one institution. The collaboration, though, extends internationally, and it is with both research centres. We referenced the European Union, the importance of Horizon Europe, hugely important for our companies. But it's also a collaboration with others, not just with kind of the European structures. Wherever we can build partnerships and alliances, that's where we can collaborate. And a critically important part of our approach, and an approach I suppose that we have enjoyed the support from government, is actually linking into our higher education and research performing organisations. And that's something I think that if you were looking at Ireland, when I started out in this kind of working world, long time ago now, and today, there is such a transformation. We have built some beautiful motorways that connect Ireland and all of that. But what we've really done is transformed the capability, the research and innovative capability that exists in companies and alongside that in terms of the university and research performing organisations, where we strive to be world class. The Indigenous sector, we can throw up a few numbers there and features of it. It's highly innovative. We claim all of that. Strong links, as I said, to the MNCs, to the multinational companies. There is a feature, actually, where we do start quite a few companies, but they end up being acquired. And this is something, that is often commented on by people, saying, well, is this not, kind of losing control? Well, actually, no. Because actually what happens is that companies that start here, that grow, that put down their roots here, stay here. And whether they are owned kind of by people in Ireland or owned by multinational corporations or investment funds or whatever, their presence and their impact in Ireland is what we really look for. And that's translated into employment, quality employment, taxes paid, and the continuity that comes in building and continuing to build the capability that provides for a secure future. We have all sorts of systems to support those companies, from financial incentives to our taxation system. Particularly our R&D tax credits become more and more important. All of these are all parts of a necessary system to support those companies that can provide the relevant solutions to the healthcare world. I just put this up because it talks about this, and I referenced earlier, collaboration and partnership. And we have, as you can see around that map of Ireland, that small green island that sits in the North Atlantic, a whole collection of different support systems and institutions that have been established by ourselves, Enterprise Ireland and IDA Ireland, by our Science Foundation Ireland, which support very large research centres, our academic institutions, which provide the people, that are educated to the highest level, and of course, the access into the system through a technology gateway structure. But actually our views of collaboration and support extends well beyond that, well beyond this island, as I mentioned earlier. And what we have been pursuing in latter years has been building those connections into particularly the North American hospital systems. And I suppose maybe one of the ambitions that we have is to follow that model into other geographies, and not least, and maybe in particular, into Asia and to Asia-Pac. So very, very relevant to see the presence of people here from such locations here today. And I think I have one more slide, which is to say thank you. But I want to just kind of maybe make some mention of, what I heard. And very conscious, that I suppose one thing that struck, or a few things that struck me. One is, healthcare is international. And I suppose kind of when you think about it, we only have one life. It matters to us. And where you can get that care, to live that good life and to live that long life, hopefully, it's so important. And if you have to go to Thailand, or if you have to go to Ireland, or if you have wherever, you follow that where you can. And I think we have to be conscious, that the good that healthcare does, wherever it is located, is so important. And to be part of that can, I think gives us all a sense of good feeling and warmth. I noticed it was a lady with a very honourable Irish name who referred to women in decisions. Beautiful kind of phrase. That actually is something that Enterprise Ireland is very, very keen on. And one of the things I think that I suppose over the last number of years, we've had a very particular focus in encouraging the participation of women in senior leadership of our companies, and particularly in those companies that are startup, high potential startup companies. We put a huge emphasis on it. And what really is a good story is in terms of the number of companies that since we began to put that emphasis on it, that have increased. And much of our support system, particularly tries to single out and encourage the participation in the leadership teams of those companies of women. And there is no doubt that those companies are decidedly better for it. It cannot be an old grey men in grey suits kind of opportunity. The second thought that occurred to me was the importance of people. And there is no doubt, in this world, where we have more people than ever before and perhaps a greater need for healthcare than ever before. But the single greatest need is for people who have the capabilities, who have that kind of discipline, whether it's whatever spread across that healthcare spectrum. And it's something I think that, globally, it's a challenge. It's a challenge here, it's a challenge in all of the countries that we talk about. And it's something I suppose that, we shouldn't lose sight of, that importance, of matching that growing world population with actually the capabilities that needs to respond to those needs. It is a global issue, a global challenge. And I suppose the other thought that occurred to me was this idea of this convergence. I think I thought a very eloquently put, much better than I ever would be able to put it. But what it did occur to me was that over 100 years or more ago, as kind of the world of Taylorism and so on, what we saw was the segmentation, the despecialization. And now what you see is convergence of specialisms, so that you can actually have a new specialism, but it is multifold. And I think what I suppose the world maybe goes round and round and things come round again. So that was the thought that occurred to me. But perhaps the most telling one of all, I think, was that, clicks, not bricks thought. I thought that was so good because, the world we live in has certainly changed, and certainly changed, as I said before, in my lifetime and in my working lifetime. And we live in the digital world today, and everywhere, in every walk of life, in every sector, the digital world is impacting so powerfully. And that's what we have all to be prepared for. So it may not be these bots that kind of, create fear and so on, but this world that we have to prepare for and that we have to live for into the future is going to be one that is going to be so determined by clicks more so than even bricks. So I really, have to thank you very much for listening to me, for giving me the opportunity. And particularly, I would hope that you will see many of the Irish companies, get to know them. We have a number of them like T-Pro and a number of others that are here this afternoon. But over the next couple of days, I would hope that you will be able to meet more and more of these companies And I would hope that for those of you who return to your countries, that you will go away with a sense that Ireland is a place of great science, great healthcare companies, companies that have offer solutions of relevance and will be there for you into the future. So thank you very, very much indeed.
Thank you, Tom. And just to say thank to Judith and Ross and Kevin and the entire Enterprise Ireland team. And just to finish on the day, I think we've had an interesting day. We started with the DG, and really what he was talking about is doing more with less and managing cost. And I think that was the strong message there. And obviously the new RHAs are going to have a big impact and putting in place the right governance structures for them. Certainly Nick and the VHI made it clear that they're open for business, want to be part of the solution with their 1.2 million members and the data they have and their move into much more of a payer-provider space. I think the session on governance gave us a lot to think about just in terms of culture, purpose, values, and the challenges there are in terms of boards all around the world having challenges and how they need to be held to account. And certainly their customers and patients need to be put at the centre of everything and they need to be accountable to them. And then I think in terms of the session on integrated care, there was certainly a very strong call for us looking in a very strategic way at the care of our elderly citizens and putting in place systems that really allow us to provide for them in a way that's appropriate to their needs. And I think in the staffing and recruitment, what's quite clear is that it's a very competitive marketplace where we're competing for staff. We heard it from you guys as well, and that how we need to really differentiate ourselves by being, I suppose, putting in place the right resources and care systems for our staff and the right career paths and structures for them. So I'd like to thank everybody who stayed with us for the whole of the day. We hope you've learned something from it, and we look forward to conversations afterwards and to regrouping tomorrow for the second day. So thank you all.